examples in the Bible about being displaced and show you how God will work it out for your good. So I was thinking about Ruth in the Bible. Ruth is a Moabitess, Moab, who had other gods, this country, not somebody a believer would want to be around because, they're sacrificing to these other gods, they're doing wicked things. And God does something really interesting, very unique. And there's a woman named Naomi, and her husband and her 2 sons moved to Moab because there was starvation. They were starving. There was a famine in Israel. And so they moved to Moab. And their sons marry these women, Orpah and Ruth. Well, her husband dies, and then her sons die. So Naomi's husband and sons die, leaving her widowed, leaving her without anybody to take care of her. The sons and the husband, nobody to care for her. She's getting older. It looks hopeless, right? So the displacement is definitely there because she feels like, oh my God, there's starvation in Israel. It's been many years. I think it was like 10 years since she had been there. She's in Moab. This is not her people. These are different foreign people. But she has these daughter-in-laws. Orpah returns to her people. Ruth says, I'm not going to leave you. She's loyal. She's faithful. And she says, your God will become my God. And I will not leave you. And she didn't leave Naomi. She was a wonderful daughter-in-law, good-hearted. And she goes back with her to Israel. She goes back with her. And when she goes back, people noticed her faithfulness. They're talking. Maybe they did say unkind things about her. Who knows? Because her people, Ruth's people, the Moabites, they had a bad reputation for serving other gods, for doing things in their eyes that were evil. And so she probably was talked about, but it was also talked about her faithfulness. And so even though it seemed like displacement, wrong placement, in the wrong place, and these women were pretty much hungry. They didn't have much. Ruth had to go behind the people who were harvesting and pick up the leftovers. But she got noticed by somebody very important in the Bible, whose name is Boaz. And he had money. He had a good reputation. Long story short, she gets noticed, and it was actually a setup from God. And it's very interesting because if you know who King David is in the Bible, he's a big deal. And guess who he's related to? Ruth and her husband, he married her, Boaz. Boaz took notice of Ruth, and it was a divine connection. And so that's how God can place you back on the right track. What looks like displacement, what looks like you don't know where you're going, everything's gone crazy. Relationships, money gets funny, everything's going crazy in your life, and you feel like, I feel displaced, I don't know what I'm doing, God, please direct me. And he is directing you. Put your trust in God. Ruth did, who had a bad background in people's eyes, who was poor, who, didn't have a regular occupation, who was, looked like a beggar maybe to some people. But to God, he favored her. He saw her faithfulness, and she took up God as her God, our God. And because she was faithful in the little things, God did much more for her. You see, when you feel displaced in this world, you may be very well being set up for your destiny. That was Ruth's destiny. What looked like displacement was actually part of her destiny. She was at the right place at the right time, and it was a setup from God. So you need to know that even though you feel displaced in this world, you don't know what direction you're going in, you need to know that God has a good plan through it all. When you're putting God first, when you're making him your primary focus, you can count on God to come through for you.